Alright, people, review of the week time. So, obviously, there was a lot of news coming out in the last week, but let's start with the fights that we had over the course of the weekend. So, obviously, on Friday, there was a Sky card. It was in the York Hall, but it was kind of low key. It kind of came across as a bit of a low key card. Fraser Clark obviously main evented. He headlined against Marius Vac. Now, I seen this card. I've seen the majority of the fights. I didn't see any of the fights from Chamberlain down. I didn't see any of them. Apparently, Roman Fury is a brother of Tyson Fury. Apparently, he's a heavyweight as well. Well, cruiserweight. A legit cruiserweight. Now, I didn't see his fight, but apparently people were telling me he did not look good. I have to go back and have a look at that because I haven't actually seen it yet. But in terms of the main card, in terms of the fights I seen there, I seen Aaron McKenna versus this guy, Uzma Lima. Now, the scorecards aren't listed on BoxRec, but that fight was competitive. It was a competitive fight the whole way through. The right man won in Aaron McKenna, to be honest with you, but one judge, I think, gave him every single round. And if you go back and look at that fight, it was very competitive the whole way through. It was not a 100 points to 90 kind of scorecard. I don't know how you could end up with that, but heyo, that was one of the fights on there. Bizarre scorecards. In terms of this fight, again, this is just another example of Sky Ben Shalom. I would say it's probably more Ben Shalom, his inexperience shown with these kind of matchmaking here, because he put Vidal Riley in there with Anes Taj. Now, they had literally just met the fight before, and they're rematching straight away next fight. Now, I could understand that if the first fight was a little bit controversial, you know, maybe there was a controversial ending, Taj had done some good work, it was hanging in the balance, and maybe, you know, it was stopped by a head clash or something controversial. I could understand them doing a rematch, but Riley won that first fight handily. I believe he stopped Taj on, I think it was cuts. I think it was cuts in the 4th or 5th round. And I kind of thought, okay, now, to be fair, Taj talked up a good game going into the fight, and in the ring, it was fairly obvious that he wasn't on Vidal Riley's level. So, okay, Riley moves on. And apparently he was looking for a rematch of Ben Shalom. And, you know, you often hear fighters do that. You know, you hear fighters who take absolute shellackings in the ring against a prospect or against maybe a rival. And straight after they're looking for a rematch. But how often do they actually do rematches? You know, if you look at Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn, when they had some of their guys going in and losing, or sorry, winning, when they had their guys going in and winning, maybe they were in like a small domestic clash, or maybe they fought this guy, very seldom they'd run it straight back with the guy they just bet, their fighter just bet, especially if they bet him in good fashion. I don't think he's ever done it really, if I think off the top of my head. But Ben Shalom felt the need to make this fight again, bizarrely, and it was the same outcome. Now, to be fair, Taj did rock Vidal Riley in the 4th round, stunned him a little bit, but Vidal Riley hit him a bit low. I did hit him a bit low. But Vidal Riley, you know, most times when you see someone and they get warned for a low blow, they're a little bit hesitant to go back down there again. But Vidal Riley wasn't. And he did hurt Taj legitimately with body shots. He then put him down. And then as soon as Taj got up, hit him with a massive uppercut. Tell came in and the fight was stopped. So, good performance by Vidal Riley. There was people at ringside looking on at this. You know, Tommy Fury was there as well. And I think Tommy Fury, I'll actually get the quote here for you because I have obviously a Twitter page here with some of the stories. Tommy Fury was having a go at this guy with Vidal Riley, and he said, yeah, quote me here, no disrespect, but Vidal's fighting a lot lower than me. Really? I mean, to be fair, like, Vidal Riley is someone I've not really covered a lot on this channel, if anything, but this Taj guy was better than anybody. Seriously, if you want to take maybe Jake Paul out of the equation, and even then you probably would say he probably still would be better. He's a lot bigger than Jake Paul. He's definitely better than anyone Tommy Fury's fought. Say what you want to say about my opponents, but I'm fighting at World Championship level, doing millions of pay-per-view buys with all these big names. He's not a big enough draw. What? I knew he had a go at Vidal Riley fighting, but I don't recall him saying, Jesus Christ, does he really think he's fighting at World Championship level? I mean, I know his last fight against Jake Paul, the WBC said that the winner would be ranked. Now, not in like the top 10, 15 or anything like that, but they'd get a form of ranking. But to even imply that that's a world level, I mean, Tommy Fury, I mean, he is looking at the book that John and Tyson wrote, How to Gaslight Your Fans. But I mean, they're not falling for it now with Tyson. They really ain't going to fall for it with Tommy Fury. I mean, I said it, to put it in context, Ben Whittaker fought that Jordan Grant guy in his last fight, and I think Ben Whittaker was even upset by just how limited he was and how little offense he gave. And Ben Whittaker literally was in first gear, and he was able to win that fight just first gear, no questions asked. He was out of the ring for about 8-9 months. And that's an opponent Tommy Fury went 4 rounds with and had a little bit of trouble in there with. So, I mean, if Jordan Grant's world level now, I mean, Jesus Christ, Ben Whittaker, I mean, get him in there with Jay Opetaia, though, sorry, he's a light heavyweight. Get him in there with Dimitri Bivol, if that's world level in Tommy Fury's mind. Crazy. But that was the Vidal Riley fight. Like I said, completely pointless. I don't understand why they rematched him, considering he won so handily the first time, but that's Ben Shalom for you, showing his lack there of experience. And then obviously the main event, we had Fraser Clark versus Marius Vac. Now, I didn't mind this fight necessarily in terms of Fraser Clark had never been in a 10-rounder. He'd never really been a lot of rounds. He needed rounds, by his own admission. The Marius Vac is going to get you those rounds because he has probably one of the best chins in the heavyweight division over the last, say, 20, 30 years. I mean, to look at Marius Vac, you can just tell by the way his skull is. You know the way you can see someone and they just instantly, you don't even need to be in their presence, you can just tell that guy's got a thick skull. A really, really hard, thick skull. That's Marius Vac. So you ain't going to hurt this guy. He's only been down once in his whole career and he's now in his 40s. So you got to imagine that that's going to happen. But for the most part, this guy's chin is absolutely granite. I mean, there's no stopping this guy. There really isn't any stopping this guy. He's only ever been stopped like that when he's been just overwhelmed or stopped on cuts like he was against Povetkin in the 12th round. And that was years ago. So I knew this fight was probably going to go the distance. It was just a case of, will I see anything from Fraser Clark during the time where I'm kind of saying like, oh, well, he's showing this or he's showing that. Or, you know, Marius Vac is a veteran. He knows, he's wily. His defense is not amazing, but it's decent enough, especially when you're this experienced, you learn things. So is he going to be able to do anything that can kind of, you know, I can look at it and say, oh, that's interesting. Not really. I mean, he resorted to pretty much 1s and 2s, and Marius Vac's going to eat 1s and 2s for breakfast. It's going to do nothing. It's literally going to do nothing. So for me, he didn't really show me anything else that I haven't already seen from Fraser Clark, and I've not been massively massively gone on Fraser Clark, to be honest with you. I've always kind of looked at him as a kind of a, he's okay, he's going to do probably something at domestic level. But in terms of bringing him to world titles and stuff like that, I've never seen it. I have never seen it. And, you know, he acknowledged the fact after this fight that he's probably not really fully ready for, you know, not necessarily not fully ready, but in hindsight, it's probably best that he didn't go straight in with Fabio Wadley. Now, he's no longer, I believe, mandatory for the British titles. So Ben Shalom said they made Fabio Wadley an offer, but if he's no longer mandatory and the mandatory is now David Adelaide, what's the point? Unless it's a serious amount of money, then I can't see Fabio Wadley taking that fight. So, look, in terms of the performance, it was what it was. You were never going to stop Marius Vac unless you just completely outworked him and just forced a stoppage in that way. So, that was the performance in a nutshell. In terms of some of the other cards we had, I only seen the main event from the next 2 cards, but we'll start with the one where I was most impressed with, which was Tim Tszyu versus Carlos Campo. Now, Campo's been in there. He's been in there with guys like Fondora. He fought Fondora last year, and obviously he was mandatory for... Fun fact, right? It's the year 2023. Do you know that Carlos Campo was the last IBF mandatory at 147 pounds? That was about 5 years ago. Carlos Campo was the last mandatory that the IBF have called at 147 pounds 5 years ago. That's a bit of a fun fact. He got stopped by Errol Spence in a round. It was a body shot, if memory serves me correct. He got stopped with headshots by Tim Tszyu in this fight. And Tim Tszyu looked devastating. He really did. You know, I haven't done a lot of videos on Tim Tszyu. I rate him. I was a bit surprised going into the Tony Harrison fight how many people thought that that fight would be tough for Tim Tszyu. I didn't see that fight as a tough fight at all for Tim Tszyu. I saw it as the opposite. I saw it was actually a good opportunity for Tim Tszyu to showcase himself, because Harrison, for me, is a very talented fighter, but lacks something there in the punch resistance department. Very weak chin is Tony Harrison. And I hadn't been impressed with Harrison pretty much since he fought Charlo. Certainly in the second fight. I thought he regressed a good bit since then. So for me, it was a case of you got a guy on the rise versus a guy who looks to be on the decline and his punch resistance isn't particularly good. So I saw that as pretty much a surefire way for Tim Tszyu to look good, and he did. In this fight against the Campo, again, I didn't think he'd get rid of him in a round, but I knew, okay, he's going to go in there, he's going to look devastating. Boy, did he look devastating in there. You know, big shots going in, looked lethal in there, so he did, really, against the Campo. And that's going to put him in good stead. It's going to put him in good stead. Obviously, he was meant to fight Charlo January this year. Didn't happen. Charlo injured himself. Now, what he could have done is, he could have just sat on that mandatory. He could have sat on it, or if he wanted to shave off a bit of ring rust, he could have just went in there and fought, you know, a bit of a no-hoper. You know, he probably could have gone in there and maybe fought a Sam Egerton or someone like that. You know, someone who, in a game, they're going to come to win, but they've no business. They've no business whatsoever at world level, and they're just going to get obliterated. He didn't do that. Tony Harrison and Carlos Campo. Yeah, they're not world beaters, but they're very good names to have on your resume, and they're not, how would I say, they're not like Sam Egerton kind of level. They're a level above that. Maybe even 2 levels above that. So he's doing well. He's doing all the right moves. I still think, even though Charlo's been inactive, even though he's had the hand injury, which is a bit of a worry if the hand injury is taking this long to recover from, I still think Charlo is just too experienced and probably a bit too big as well. So I would favour Charlo when they fight, which will probably be towards the back end of this year. But you got to give Tim Tszyu a live shot in that fight. I'm looking forward to that fight. I think that fight's going to be absolutely amazing. In terms of Prograis, his fight, you know, I did catch it. I'm not going to stick too long on that because it was the only fight I saw from the DAZN card. I did catch it. It was not, to say the least, it was not compelling viewing, to say the least. Yeah, it was a strange one because I think everyone kind of thought Prograis would go in there and would win it pretty convincingly, pretty easy. I thought that as well. Had the guy down in the third round, but the opponent was just moving around the ring, trying to pick rounds up here and there, and he was definitely winning rounds, don't get me wrong. It was a split decision. The 2 judges who scored it in favour of Prograis, whilst I don't have an issue with Prograis winning the fight, they gave it to him by a massive margin. I think one judge had it like 118, 109. So it's a crazy amount. Prograis needs to improve a lot if he is going to beat Devin Haney on that form. Because essentially what his opponent did is something akin to what Devin Haney would do, and if you can't really get your head around that over someone who's a level below Devin Haney, yeah, good luck trying to do it against the real thing. Good luck with that. So now we move on to the boxing news. So a lot of news has been coming in over the last couple of days. Obviously, the main talking point here, amongst several, would be the Anthony Joshua Dillian White rematch. So apparently that is looking to be fallen by the wayside. Eddie Hearn has even kind of not admitted defeat necessarily, but kind of alluded to the fact that Dillian White is looking for basically an unrealistic amount. And I said that might happen. You know, Dillian White has been getting big paydays over the last couple of years, and for whatever reason, he still feels that he should be getting those paydays, in spite of the fact that he's been knocked out badly twice in the last 3 years, very badly as well. He's had one win against Povetkin, who knocked him out the fight previous, and then a life and death fight over Jermaine Franklin, who's a fighter who at the time we didn't really know how good he was, and now we know like he's tough, but he's not going to be troubling the guys at world level, to say the least. So Dillian White's stock definitely hasn't risen. it's decreased massively over the last couple of years. So for him to be looking for crazy money to fight Anthony Joshua, for me, it's like, why? You know, as I said, Eddie Hearn, DAZN, it's a business. They have to return, at least try and return a profit. And what's the point in making a fight if you know straight off the bat, right, we're going to take a massive L on this show? And it's not like there's a world title on the line. It's not like we're pushing a prospect who we think is going to make us money in the long term. It's not like that. In terms of Joshua, the Wilder fight may yet make the money. Well, it will. But that's probably really only it. It's not like you're going to be looking at a guy thinking, okay, we can take an L on this show, but he's going to make us, in the next 3 to 4 years, profit. It's not like that at all. So that fight seems to be dead in the water. God knows who they'll get him in there with next, though. Jesus, I don't even want to think about that because they're not going to be good. In terms of Canelo versus Charlo, yeah, that seems to be the fight that's going to be made next. Badu Jack has essentially ruled that fight out. So Canelo versus Charlo, we will wait on word for that. It'd be interesting to see. It'll definitely be on, I would imagine it will be on Showtime or Fox, more than likely Showtime. So let's see what happens there. This is an interesting fight. So the British Boxing Board of Control have ordered Denzel Bentley to defend his British middleweight title against Hamza Shearer next. Purse bids July the 12th. They are both Queensberry fighters, last time I checked. So very interesting. I quite like that fight, actually. That would be a very interesting fight, I think. Hamza Shearer versus Denzel Bentley. Bentley has certainly shown that he is a step above domestic level, I think. You know, I think that fight against... I always forget that guy's name. I always forget the champion's name. His name always escapes me. But he definitely proved me wrong in that fight. You know, I thought he'd get obliterated. He didn't. Now, in terms of Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boys, what we're talking about now, they could be in a spot of bother here. So they, Golden Boy, have now filed a lawsuit against Ryan Garcia. Interesting. To enforce the contract they have with him. So, to cut a long story short, Garcia apparently is claiming that De La Hoya and Golden Boy have violated their end of the contract. And Golden Boy are now saying, no, we haven't. So, this could get a bit ugly. And, you know, I don't particularly like seeing it when, you know, promoters and fighters are going back and forth like this. And there's going legal roads and stuff like that. But with Golden Boy, I think more so with them, they do not want to lose Ryan Garcia. They just don't want to do it because Ryan Garcia, albeit, yes, he lost Tank Davis last time around, and the way he lost, you know, could he have gotten up? I'm sure he certainly could have. I don't know if it's this. He can come back. Right? He's young enough, he can come back. That's fine. But they have nobody else after Ryan Garcia. They've literally got nobody else. So, for them, he really is their only chance of making anyway decent money. Because when you take Ryan Garcia out of the equation, who else do Golden Boy have in their list of fighters, in their roster? You know, Munguia, at one point you could have said, alright, he has potential, but his career has stagnated quite badly over the last couple of years to the point now where he's having fights and you're only really finding out the week of the fight. You're like, oh crap, Munguia's fighting? Virgil Ortiz. Now, he has potential. He certainly does, but he's very unreliable. He's not pulled out of fights. That'd be wrong to say. If he's been scheduled for a fight, he's actually had the fight, but he's had a lot of reschedules because he's always getting sick or there's always something wrong. If you take the Michael McKinson fight, I think that was meant to happen early last year. It ended up happening in the summer. If you look at the fight that he's going to be in next against Danny Omenez, how many times has that been rescheduled? 2 or 3 times now? So he's unreliable in that sense. So as good as he is, and he is good, as good as he is, and as much potential as he does have, if you got him a big fight, let's just say, right, hypothetically speaking, right, Spence beats Crawford, okay, and he decides, I'll stick around at 147 for one more fight. Let's do Virgil Ortiz versus Spence. It's more so, will the fight happen when it's meant to happen, that I'd be worried about, because he's a bit like Hughie Fury in that sense. He's constantly rescheduling the fights. So he's a bit unreliable in that sense. So other than Ryan Garcia, you really don't have anybody else there who, you know, is really going to turn you in a profit, realistically. So Golden Boy are obviously going to be clamouring to get him to stay. Ryan Garcia feels as though his contract's been essentially breached, for want of a better word. So let's see how that goes. in terms of fights that they are trying to get over the line, not over just boxing in general, the Daily Star Sports are reporting that Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn is now reportedly on the verge of being agreed again to take place in Abu Dhabi in the UAE. It's claimed that the fight could take place in the UK if Benn makes progress with the UCAD case. And Eddie Hearn has confirmed that it's pretty much confirmed. Ben Eubank, Ben Shalom was actually speaking as though the Eubank versus Spitfire is still the one that they're going to be trying to make. So I don't know what's going on there. In terms of this fight, I really have no interest in it now at this stage. I will admit, when it was announced first, I was kind of like, really? Ben Eubank? But the closer we got to it, the more intrigued I was about it. And the more kind of, I don't want to say hype for it, but the more interested I was for it. Whereas now with everything, I literally just don't care anymore. And Ade in one of his recent videos was saying that he was making the argument that with Conor Benn, is it the fact that he's failed the drugs test? Is it how he handled himself during the drugs test and obviously the fact after the failed drugs test? And that's he was kind of saying, are they the reasons why people don't like this fight? And he was also saying that other fighters have failed drug tests in the past and we're still looking to see their fights. And I commented on that and I said it's a variety of the reasons, right? But the main reason is the fact that this whole Ben UCAD situation has not been rectified. That's the thing that's rubbing people up the wrong way. Ben's attitude and his behaviour. The fact of the matter is, right, he has failed 2 drugs tests. That's there. There's no disputing that. That has been what's happened, right? And instead of, maybe keeping his mouth shut and cooperating if he's saying he's as innocent as he says he is, if he says he has all this proof, he hasn't cooperated. And all he's done, right, and obviously if you fail 2 drugs tests, people are going to make comments. They're going to say things. All he's done is make himself, unaccessible by turning comments off on every form of social media and just berating people who have said anything about him, and then just saying everyone's out to get me. The British Boxing Board of Control don't like me because my dad gave his license up 30 odd years ago and stuff like that, and trying to play this victim mentality. That doesn't come across well because at the end of the day, he's not a victim. He's not been victimised in the slightest. The British Boxing Board of Control are trying to get to the bottom of this. He's been unforthcoming until now. And people are like, well, what do you have to hide? At the end of the day, right, if you're accused of a crime and damn well you didn't commit. I'll give you an example. Someone is lying there dead in a pool of blood with a knife in them. You run in, there's no one around you, and you pull that knife out. When someone comes in and sees you, what are they going to see? They're going to see you with a knife in your hand and a guy dead with a pool of blood on it. They're going to put 2 and 2 together and they're going to say, did you do that? There's CCTV cameras everywhere, right, who can pick up the guy already dead, you running in, taking the knife out. So they know you didn't do it, right? So what would you do? You would just say, well, look at the CCTV. Well, Conor Benn is basically saying, no, I'm not going to. Just believe me. Just believe me at face value, even though it doesn't look good, but just believe me at face value, despite the fact I have the quote-unquote evidence there. And off that, he's tried to make fights whilst all this is going on, right? It's still not been rectified. He's tried to make fights against Manny Pacquiao and Kell Brook, 2 retired fighters, which again rubs people up the wrong way. And now again, they're trying to do this fight by any means in a different country to try and circumvent all this, which again is rubbing people up the wrong way. It's essentially a case of being rewarded for bad behaviour, which seems to be something that happens a lot nowadays. But these are all reasons why people don't like this fight and why people can rub the wrong way against Conor Benn. And if you want to go and say, like, well, Canelo has failed drugs tests, which he has. Dylan White has failed drugs tests, which he has. If you go back to 2012, Dylan White served a 2-year ban. Canelo was a lot more cooperative, although I do feel as though like he was kind of given a pass without giving it a pass by just the WBC and the WBA, even though he did serve a 6-month ban, which is irrelevant because most fighters of his stature only fight once every 6 months anyway, but nevertheless, they still were punished. Povetkin, he got a form of punishment. He lost his mandatory crack against Deontay Wilder. So these fighters have been punished for their indiscretions, whereas Benn has had no punishment whatsoever. And not only that, he's trying to circumvent, or he was anyway, trying to circumvent all investigations, all form of that, and resume his career anyway. And Eddie Hearn the guy who, you know, made those passionate speeches a couple of years ago about drug cheats should be banned and I won't work with drug cheats. Well, look at his behaviour during this whole Conor Benn situation. I get the fact Conor Benn is his fighter, I understand that. But the fact of the matter is, he has literally tried everything in his power to get Conor Benn back out there. And not even to try and clear his name. It's just been like, right, well, we don't care about these fighters, we're just going to fight anyway. Which, again, rubs people the wrong way. So all these reasons need to be taken into consideration as to why people, A, don't want that. The people really do not like this fight. And I think Eddie Hearn really needs to read the room. Because people are not happy about this fight. They're not happy with the Conor Benn situation. For me, and Conor Benn is not bright, right? He's absolutely, just when God was giving out brains, he was at the back of the queue. If he had any sense, or if he had any brains, he would just keep his mouth shut, wait and see what UCAD do, and try and rebuild. Try and endear himself back to the fans. Because whilst I think people may or may not, like, realistically, people really don't seem happy about this fight. So do I think it would tank? I don't know. Because realistically, from what I've seen, a lot of people aren't happy about this fight. So, I don't know. But that's the situation with the whole Conor Benn, Chris Eubank. And then he goes, Conor Benn, and was talking about Josh Taylor, where he said he'd happily give Josh Taylor a third beating on the spin and not to play with him. Josh Taylor, former undisputed champion at 140 pounds, cleared out that vision before Teofimo Lopez came in. Josh Taylor would beat the living crap out of Conor Benn. And, you know, Conor Benn and obviously Josh Taylor had a back and forth. Josh Taylor said it must be the roid rage kicking in or the pregnancy hormones. And Conor Benn, showing his intellect, said people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. You've taken that whole quote completely out of context. Conor Benn, you do realise Josh Taylor has never been involved in any, you know, failed drug test or anything like that. Not that there's any pending investigation over him or anything like that. So again, showing his amazing intelligence, Conor Benn, of which there is very little. Very, very, very little. I mean, Deontay Wilder is bad, but I would even say Conor Benn is even worse in terms of just sheer lack thereof intelligence. It's unbelievable. To end it, this whole Tyson Fury, John Jones thing. So apparently there's messages been going around by the two fighters at this point. Now, Tyson Fury, John Jones, I mean really, he's been teasing a big announcement, Tyson Fury, and I've no doubt that if he fought John Jones, it would make an astronomical amount of money. Maybe not as much as the Saudis would pay, but more money than he would get for probably, maybe even fighting, maybe even fighting an Anthony Joshua in Wembley. Seriously. Because that crossover has crossover appeal. It would. If that's what Tyson Fury is looking to go down the road now, if that's the road he's looking to go down, why keep the title? That's the big issue I have. Like, if Tyson Fury went out tomorrow and he got that WBC strap and he said, you know what, do whatever you want with it, take it, here it is. Does Wilder want to fight for it? Does Usyk want to fight for the vacant title? Does Joshua want it? Take it. I'm going to fight Francis Ngannou. I'm going to fight John Jones. I'm going to fight anyone from the UFC who wants to go over to boxing. I'm going to make a killing. I'm going to make an absolute king's ransom in money. Then go and do that. You're not holding the division up. You know, we're not going to take it serious as, you know, legitimate, real. They are legitimate, obviously, but they're not going to take them as world level fights. You got to make world level money, but you're not going to be beating world level opponents. But you're not holding the division up. So, yeah, go for it. But you're not doing that. Clinging on to that WBC title, hold it hostage, and we are still no sooner to figuring out if we're going to get Usyk versus Fury, which for me is the only fight to make. So, I swear, I don't know. I kind of worry in a sense that we might actually see a rematch with Dillian Whyte, because Fury seems to be in kind of rematch mode now, where just giving everyone who he's already fought rematches. Wilder, obviously he had to fight Wilder, but he didn't have to fight Chisora. And with Dillian Whyte not having a fight now against Joshua, where else is he going to get a big payday? Tyson Fury bet him handily. I wouldn't imagine there would be as much interest for another Dillian Whyte fight, but you just don't know. They wouldn't do Wembley. Doesn't mean they couldn't do Tottenham Hotspur Stadium again. I mean, it's smaller. Watch the space. Watch the space. For now, lads and lassies, I'll leave it there. That's pretty much all the news I could find. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed the videos, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, once again, if you haven't already. For now, lads and lads, I'll leave you there. We'll obviously try and do some lives this week. I've got a lot going on this week, but hopefully we can get a live in during the week. Hope you enjoyed the video, people. Smash the like button if you could. Subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. For now,